Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talking with Tanya. As per usual, I am looking for an unpaid intern, someone who's creative, willing to collaborate, someone who can help me with social media, marketing, editing, creative ideas, things of the sort. So if you're interested, I do have a link in the description below. Now, moving on to this week's episode. So I feel like uh, insights I've kind of come across the past few days, or like what I was learning about myself the past few days, was kind of like heavy on me a little bit. I feel like I spent the last few days just kind of being super exhausted, and ultimately, I feel like that's what led to me like realizing why I was so exhausted. I had like 3 days off of work, and I just like slept through all of them, and I still showed up to work time. And I was like really wondering like what was it that was making me so exhausted. I feel like naturally I'm a very like enthusiastic, optimistic, like goofy, funny, like just like I just a lover of life type of person, and I always like to support people, hear them out, make help people feel safe and seen and understood, and um, it's just the type of person that I am. And feeling exhausted lately, I feel like had made me realize that I might be overgiving in this way. So it made me realize like am I setting this it made me realize like am I setting this expectation of myself to other people to always show up in this way. And I just like I felt like I was giving in so many areas of my life that I don't feel like any like I didn't really feel like a source that was giving to me in the way that I was giving, and I just felt like I was starting to pour from an empty cup. Like I just feel like I was at my capacity, and it was like difficult to show up as my usual self. And so I just felt like very like self-contained and reserved one day, and it made me realize like I feel like people aren't there for me in the way that I was for them, and not in the sense that oh to show up for me when I'm down, because I do have people who are there for me, but like in the sense of like just trying to get to know me. And that's where the title comes from. Do people like me for me or just because of how I make them feel? I was starting to feel like people really enjoyed being around me because I was easy to be around. And I always adjusted myself to how they're, reacting in the moment, how they're, coming across. I just felt like I was able to be the person that they needed me to be in the moment. Because I feel like I can be so good at like reading people, understanding people, and, body language, facial expressions, just like, and just, I feel like I'm very intuitive and emotionally intelligent. So this kind of um, by default made me be the person to um help them in the moment. So, but I didn't realize that how taxing it could be. You know, I feel like I was filling empty spaces, or or asking questions, being curious, and it made me realize like who's taking the time to get to know me, who actually knows me for me. Like, do you like me for me, or do you like me just being around just because of how I make you feel? And that's not necessarily like other people's fault. Like, I'm taking accountability because I allowed myself to get there. I brought that energy to the space. I always and I feel like it derives from the root wound of like wanting to be liked, and feeling left out, and like not wanting others now to not be left out. So I feel very deeply, and I'm very empathetic and compassionate towards others, and to a fault. So I feel like I wanted to reach a point to where I'm gonna start prioritizing reciprocity, to where I want people to meet me at where I'm at, and I want an equal give and take in my relationships. And this comes back to the fear of like outgrowing people, because I didn't really see this as a problem. Like it just felt like it was a subconscious thing, right? I didn't realize I was doing it to a point where I was exerting myself. So I'm just like seeking more balance from now on. That's all. And I feel like those who care enough about me will show up in the ways that I need them to, versus and if they don't, that means that they're not for me, because I shouldn't be overgiving in a way to where it benefits only one person, And it almost felt discouraging, because I feel like I was giving to people uh, I was giving so much to people in hopes to help them grow and to evolve and to become better versions of themselves. That's what this podcast is for, you know? And I didn't necessarily see that from everyone. So it almost felt like wasted energy. Like, well, then what's the point, you know? And it just like a tough realization I had to make, and I'm trying to readjust. So that takes me to the readjustment period, which is like this weird limbo phase that I felt like I was in for a little bit. When you're shifting your identity, it's weird. I don't know how else to put it, because you're not yourself. You're reshaping who you are. Like, you have to readjust. And when you make a new perspective and you realize like things that no longer align with you, you have to change aspects about yourself. And so it was taxing. That in itself was a little taxing, because I started to self monitor everything that I was saying. I already do that anyways. So to to do that times like 10, it felt like like every little thing, everything I said, I would ask and question myself, like, did that feel right to say? Is that aligned with who I am now? You know, um, I remember like being younger and being more reserved and contained and shy and just socially awkward. And like when I came to the realization that I don't care as much as what people think anymore, I'm going to express myself, and those who find me will find me. So then I started to like be so much more expressive. And that was like a little weird, like, um, identity shift phase. So, like, I was in limbo trying to figure out who I am, like, trying to figure out like what's appropriate to say and to who. Like, personality wise, who I how I should act around certain people, and like, like who will get what. And so it's almost like that. It's just like I'm just like now I'm readjusting in the sense of like, are you giving to me the way I'm giving to you? It just made me question, like, I want the things that I say to align with how I feel. I want an easy flow, feel like I was overgiving in a way to where I was filling gaps or filling the silence or becoming curious, and I just don't feel like I was being met with that. So I think it's only fair to myself that people see me too as much as I see them. So get to know me. It was like weird, because there's times where I feel like people will actually ask me a question or two and became surprised by my answers. I'm like, there's a lot more going on up here than you realize. It's not all just about you. But yeah, so it just felt like I was at my capacity for a little bit there. And it just made me realize, like, I think I don't know. It made me realize, like, I feel like I was setting the expectation that I always had to show up in this way, and I don't want to have to be like that. Like, the more I experience relationships that are more reciprocal, I'm like, I like this. I enjoy this. This is a lot easier. I don't have to recharge from this. I don't have to put in the extra work. You know, Being there emotionally for people, having to readjust yourself and be who you need them to be in the moment, that's work. That takes extra work. I've said this before, but thinking requires energy. And something I always constantly preach to myself and that I live by, right, is that I think how I've grown and how I continue to grow is by being uncomfortable. Nothing grows in comfort. So I have to step out of my comfort zone to grow. So then I ask myself, well, how do I allow others to grow if I'm theirs? And that just like blew my mind. I can't, like, they're not gonna grow if I'm always being their safe space. If I want people to meet me, then I should allow them to come forward. And I can't do that if I'm always the one bridging the gap. So that was very enlightening for me to learn. And yeah, I want to see what comes from this. I want to see how, like, the dynamics that change and like what's going to grow from this. It's very interesting. I just want to see like the difference that I'm curious to see the difference in my life from learning this, and the change in my personality and who I am now and what I allow. I feel like I'm much more protective of my energy. I want to be more balanced, and it almost feels like it's so weird. It almost feels like the end of an era, you know? I've grown so much, I've come such a long way that I'm curious like what's next. If there's even more. It almost feels like I'm at like a finish line. It's this weird sense of like finality. And like it had me worried in the sense of like am I going to have more content for my podcast? But I don't know, I have faith. I feel like I'm starting to just have trust that I'm capable of continuing to be on here and helping others, because there's one thing I've learned about myself is that I notice patterns. I notice like behaviors and like things that help me grow, so maybe I can see that in others as well, you know. i I don't know, I just have trust that I can continue this. It just feels like almost a new season of like episodes. So I'm also kind of curious as to how my content's going to evolve, because this is, I feel like this podcast involves having a lot of faith, because I, as I'm coming to these insights and conclusions, it's not like I can just sit down and think about it. Like this is me experiencing life like in real time and coming here to express the conclusions that I've made after a certain period of time. So even though as much as I want to keep momentum going, I was excited to come on here and make another episode and keep the momentum, right? Because I feel like I was popping them out left and right, you know, once a week, and I was just like, oh, let's keep it going. But I also feel like it's a little bit out of my control at the same time, because I can't force, you know, my content. I just experience life, like I said, and I just allow these insights to come to me and just to come along and express and share my my conclusions with you guys. So it's a little bit of a like trust the process and have faith in this kind of thing. And it's a little nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie, just a little bit, because like I said, I just feel like what is there else left to learn, you know? um I've come such a long way to where I'm prioritizing myself and I'm building reciprocal relationships, and I feel like I'm building a more emotionally fulfilling life, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm getting a little emotional, but um, yeah, I just hope to help other people reach that too, because it can be very beautiful. And of course, I feel like with growth comes endings. You know, it felt like a part of me was also sad because I was shedding an identity, even though like that goes back to like this limbo phase that I was in. It's I feel like I'm like shedding skin, but the new one wasn't fully formed yet. So I just felt like sadness because I feel like I lost a little bit of myself, you know. So I think that's normal, you know. I feel like with this shedding, like of like the skin, it makes you realize like not everybody is capable of meeting you, right? Like all these new boundaries that I'm setting and like putting myself first and trying to learn balance within relationships. I feel like I want to allow other people to meet me, but not everybody will. So it's like something that's kind of like a hard pill to swallow, because like I'm learning to put myself first, and you kind of hope and wish that people can meet you there, but I feel like it's kind of something like you can't control. It's like something I've told myself before. It's like you can't change others, you know, it's up to them to change. And um yeah, so if you know if you're going through something like this similar, you're not alone. And I try to have like hope and faith in the future that once you finally meet people who can meet where you're at and reciprocate, you know, respect your boundaries, give you as much energy as you give them, like I think it'll be all worth it in the end. That's what I'm really hoping for, because what else is all this for, you know? Oh gosh, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like me being so like loving, compassionate, empathetic, like it's a gift and a curse, you know? So I hope in the end this is all worth it. I don't regret any of the love that I've given to people, and I honor the lessons that they helped me gain. And I I just wish everybody, you know, the very best. I have no regrets. I have no resentment, no bitterness towards anybody, and I'm very grateful for that. So I do feel like this was a little bit of a shorter episode. I don't really have much more to give, but that's where I'm at with my life right now. And thank you guys for listening. Take care of yourself. Peace out.